All right, Jonathan, thank you. And Thomas in Worthing in West Sussex, your turn. Hello, Thomas. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, Jonathan List just said that there's nothing on the paper that said we would be leaving the single market of the customs union. The Remain campaign spent the last 2 weeks of the referendum saying we would be leaving the single market and the customs union if we voted to leave.
We'd be out of the single market. That's the reality. Britain would be quitting the single market.
The Leave campaign has admitted they would take us out of the single market.
You've said you'd come out of the single market.
And the other side haven't told us what would replace the single market.
But if I can, I really am genuinely perplexed because the single market, of course, created by your former boss, Margaret Thatcher, if you pull out of the single market, which you just said you would...
Well, the Brexiteers, like Gove and Johnson, say they want to leave the single market, and that means that we go on to WTO tariffs, which means within 2 years we'll leave the European Union. And after that period, we will be out of the single market.
If we leave the European Union, and as the Leave campaigners want, walk away from the single market, if we leave the European Union, if we take ourselves out of the single market, by undermining our economy, Andrew,
but look at this,
by leaving the single market.
But
well, obviously, if we vote to leave the EU,
yes,
with the economic consequences that would have, leaving the single market...
And now that the people have voted leave, he's acting like they never said it. It's utterly bizarre.
Jonathan?
I didn't actually say that. Just now I said there was no point in the campaign where they said we'd be leaving with no deal. Leaving the single market and customs union doesn't mean you leave with no deal. It means you leave with a free trade agreement, for example, as Theresa May's planning.
Right,
Thomas?
OK. And,
do you take that from Jonathan?
Sorry?
Do you accept that from Jonathan?
No, not particularly, because, I mean, if you
But he's right, though, isn't it? There is a difference between a no-deal Brexit and leaving the single market and the customs union, but nonetheless having a free trade deal such as has been posited in the mould of a Canada plus.
I would love the Canada plus deal, and I hope it's still on the table, but the reality is there's no such thing as a no-deal Brexit. We're going to have some form of deal, be it World Trade Organisation or other, that's declared later. Can I just quickly take you up on your point? You're talking about businesses that will leave the country if
not necessarily in their entirety, but jobs will not necessarily in their entirety, although possibly in some cases they might. Right. But arms of businesses, divisions of businesses.
Right, we've had a recent story about Jaguar Land Rover.
Yes.
3,500 jobs going. I think people are forgetting that Jaguar Land Rover got a new factory opening in Slovakia with an EU grant, and that agreement actually predates our voting to leave the EU. There are numerous other examples, like Ford Transit moving to Turkey, Cadbury's factory moving to Poland, Peugeot moving to Slovakia. I could go on, and these all predate Brexit.
But hang on, as far as my understanding, because I read the story as well, as far as my understanding of the Jaguar Land Rover job losses, prospective job losses that were announced this week, it was by no means purely down to Brexit. It was partly, for example, as a result of a slowdown in uptake in the buying of these cars in China, indeed. Yeah. But it was also acknowledged that it was partly because of Brexit.
No, it's partly because of uncertainty, and uncertainty is not being helped by people like Jonathan List prolonging the departure process and people in Parliament trying to drag it out as long as possible. Let's just get it done, for goodness sake.
Jonathan, what's your answer to Thomas?
Well, I love the fact that it's now my fault that Jaguar Land Rover's pulling out of Britain. I refuse to accept that Remainers are responsible for this. You say that we need to get on with it. Fine. What does getting on with it actually look like? Like Sarah just said a minute ago, we just wanted Brexit. It's like saying we want to move house. Fine. Which house do you want? You might have 52% of people voting to move house. Not all of them will have the same house in mind.
All right, Jonathan. Thomas, which house do you want to move into?
Well, if I was going to move into a house, I wouldn't walk into one estate agent and say, I'm definitely buying a house from you at whatever the price. And that's exactly what the hard Remainers in Parliament are doing at the moment.
You wouldn't do that, so you would presumably think you would be a better negotiator than the government and the negotiating team. What house would you move into?
Hardy would be a better negotiating team than the Parliament.
Look, this is all good entertaining radio, but you're not telling me which house you're going to move into.
I already have. I've said that Canada plus would be preferable, and if that's not a viable option any longer, which was actually offered by Donald Tusk.
It seemed to be offered, didn't it? It did seem to be offered by Donald Tusk. It wasn't set in stone by any means.
No, he did openly offer it. I can send you a link of that in a minute, if you like.
Jonathan,
we can have Canada plus.
Sorry?
If we agree... We can have it if we agree that Northern Ireland will have an entirely different tariff regime and an entirely different regulation regime.
Yes, because Thomas, the point about Canada plus is it does. Hang on, Thomas, you can, but the problem with the Canada plus still is it doesn't deal with the Northern Ireland border issue.
Right, the so-called border issue in Northern Ireland, the Irish Parliament, the Irish Premier, the European Commission head.
But in a no-deal scenario, at least until there is a deal, and sooner or later there will have to be a deal, we won't be installing a hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland, and everyone knows that. Just in terms of plans for drawing up a border, we're not drawing up any plans for a border between Northern Ireland and Ireland full stop, because there isn't going to be one. And I've made it very clear to my counterpart in the UK, but also to the other EU Prime Ministers, that under no circumstances will there be a border, full stop. We're not going to be hiring dogs and training dogs. We're not going to be hiring customs officials. We're not going to be scoping out the border for a site for truck stops. And no matter how much Fianna Fáil demands that we should make those kind of preparations, we're not going to do that.
If negotiations fail with the Tory government on the exit agreement and those negotiations collapse, we know we can't trust Theresa May with the border. Will you give us a clear commitment that the European Union will not impose a border, customs posts or any other infrastructure of a frontier in order to protect the European borders in the way you're doing to the detriment and at the loss of life of people in the Mediterranean? That's the question. We don't trust the Tories. Can we trust you?
Yes.
No border, under any circumstance.
The UK Parliament, Northern Irish politicians, they've all said there won't be a hard border. So, I mean, it's a bit like this argument with the Calais border. There's going to be friction there. The Port Authority head in Calais has already rubbished that. These are all scare stories that are designed...
That's not true, actually. That's incorrect. The Deputy Mayor was saying...
If you like.
The Deputy Mayor was saying that...
Thomas, you've had your say, but we're all trying to be thoroughly polite here, so just let Jonathan come back.
In Calais, the head of the Calais port, just like in Dover, have said that there'll be huge tailbacks. Obviously, the local governments in Calais are trying to downplay the risk because they don't want to draw business away. The point is, whatever port you have in France, Belgium or the Netherlands will have to implement EU law because France, Belgium and the Netherlands are staying in the EU. If we're outside the customs union or single market, that means that there'll have to be various checks according to what we're in and what we're not in.
On this programme yesterday, the former Brexit Secretary David Davis said this.
One of the things that never gets covered in the BBC coverage of this is all the French preparations going on. I mean, this all hinges around Dover-Calais, which is one potential choke point. And the French are moving heaven and earth. They've found places outside Calais to have their inspection regimes. The head of French Customs has said they're going to arrange their inspection arrangements to facilitate and accelerate throughput. Indeed, other ports are saying the same. Rotterdam, Zeebrugge, Antwerp, all saying the same.
Well, other leading Brexiteers, including Ian Duncan-Smith, have been speaking in similar terms.
What goes out and doesn't come through any of these reports is that Calais, the Mayor of Calais and the President of the Pas du Nord have made it absolutely explicitly clear. They have said in terms, we will not be checking any more lorries than we do at the moment, and their veterinary check is now 12 miles behind Calais, so they said there will be no blockages at Calais.
Well, that sounds pretty definitive. Let's turn, however, to those who are actually involved in running the ports in that region. Jean-Marc Puissesseau is President Chairman of the Ports of Boulogne and Calais, and he's on the line. Good morning.
Good morning.
Are those two individuals that we just heard from right about the preparations you are making?
We have heard so many things about the hard Brexit. We are preparing a no deal since 1 year in Calais. And for the 29th of March, we will be ready. When Mr. Gerding came to Calais, your transport minister, we told him that we will be ready. And as Great Britain has decided not to check any truck in export and not any truck in import, we will not check the truck more than we are doing today with the migrants. And the only thing that we will be only asking to the driver that they have the customs declarations, but we will not stop or ask more as we are doing today. It's very clear.
On that point about the customs declarations, there will be many more lorries having to fill in those customs declarations than there are now, because at the moment they are not required for trade within the EU. So presumably you will have to then check those declarations.
Yes, but at first with the two ferries company in Calais, we are doing a big information of everyone, all the clients, what they have to do. And if somebody has forgotten or has not done this declaration, we have been preparing a special area, packing and checking ports to help this driver to do the job. So that will not in no way be slowing down the traffic. That's why I am, if you allow me to say that, I am very shocked. I consider for disrespectful to Calais and to Dover what has been decided by the Mr. Gering on the British government to help for £100 million and to as a view to reduce the traffic from Dover and to Calais, and of course a total of care of 10% by helping three ferries companies, among them one company which has no ferry, which is not working today, and helping from Ostend to Ramsgate. It's completely shock for us, and disloyalty towards the port of Calais.
It's a shock.
One point. The only positive point is that the migrants, the Ostend port is not so well protected as Calais. The migrants will leave, I hope, Calais to go to Ostend. That is the only positive point.
Okay.
Well,
they would say, the Department of Transport would say that they're doing that in order to avoid future problems of, too much traffic and too many delays on that Dover-Calais route.
It's wrong. It's not true. It's not true. That it will not be more delay. It will not be. If it is one delay, it's a chaos. It will not be any delay. As I've told you, Great Britain will not control in export and in import. So we will not control to export to Great Britain. The trucks will be passing as they are doing today. In the import, but that is not your concern, we will only be checking with the customs the veterinary and phytosanitary control, for which we have already been building infrastructure and parking, but that will not influence the traffic in Dover. So what has been said, this 100 million, if Great Britain has too much money, they should give us to help us to be more effective toward the migrants. It's not true. It will not be. It's no reason that it will be more so.
Whether it's a deal or a no deal, are you saying in either scenario?
No, the same thing. Because it will not be no deal. But in a no deal anyway, you say, everybody say, all the responsible people we met from England in the last year said there will be no control in Dover, neither in import nor in import. So why we will not control the export, only asking the papers are ready, the declaration, custom declaration. That's all. And in the import, as you don't control, it should not be a queue in Dover because there will not be control. So where is the problem? That's what I don't understand.
Jean-Marc Puisseau, President Chairman of the Ports of Boulogne-Calais. Thank you.
Final word to you, Thomas, as a Brexiteer.
Keep an eye on your Twitter feed. I'll post replies to both of those claims in a minute.
It was very entertaining to hear you, entertaining, like we were listening to Sarah chuckle earlier, to hear you giggle, Thomas.
Yeah, it's pathetic. It's all long rubbish scare stories.
All right, Thomas, very good. Thank you to Jonathan. Thank you to Thomas. Your turn again in a moment. 0345606097.